Welcome to the Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers and its monthly author showcase. I am your host, Peter Stockwell. Author Brian Dorsey is visiting with us this month at the Bremerton Kitsap Access Television Studios. Brian and I met at Barnes & Noble when he was on a panel in which he participated with 3 other authors a few months ago. A Kitsap resident, Brian writes intriguing thrillers and I understand also comic books. Welcome to our broadcast for Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers.
Thanks, it's great to be here. I've been looking forward to it.
So your writing career didn't start out as your primary job. What'd you do?
Actually, I was in the military for 23 years in the Navy. Then after that, I was a project manager for a year and then shifted over and working for the shipyard here in Bremerton now.
Very good. And yet now you are making a name for yourself as an author. And what have you done to become this best-selling author that we have in Kitsap?
Well, I think the best thing that I've done so far is get out from under a small independent publisher and start taking control of the process myself. Originally, the first book in my Gateway series was published through a small independent publisher, which kind of turned into a little bit of a nightmare, me struggling to, I was doing most of the marketing myself and honestly most of the editing and everything else, and reached a point where you could tell they were kind of getting ready to go under. And I was able to work with them, get the rights back for all my intellectual property, and then from that point just kind of move forward. The biggest thing I think I did was the 3rd book was getting ready to come out in the series when I gained all the rights back, and I'd been after them to put the first book up for free, and they never would do that, and then I did that for about a week, and then I rocketed up into the top 100 for military space opera. And had over 1,500 downloads of that free book. So that's kind of that's what did it for me.
What was it about your background that led to your writing this Gateway series? You've had a wealth of knowledge for science fiction.
Yeah, actually, it's kind of part of my pitch when I'm selling the books. Is I tell them it is a military space opera. So it's basically military science fiction at its core. But a lot of emphasis on character development, world building, not just explosions, but there are a lot of explosions in it. So, in terms of the science fiction element, I actually have a degree in radiation physics from Oregon State University, so the science should make sense. I have a degree in history from Oregon State and a master's in social science from Syracuse, so as much as it can, the politics should make sense. And then I was in the Navy for 23 years, both enlisted as an officer, so the military stuff should make sense. So.
Well, very good. And you also write nonfiction books of a historical nature.
I do. That kind of stemmed from, one, where I grew up in West Virginia, southern West Virginia area, and then through my academic pursuits with history and social science. So I have a book that's been published on recruitment of African Americans during the Civil War that looks at the different motivations or detractors for service, whether it is free blacks in the North or recently freed slaves from the South. There's also a small discussion on border state issues. And then my last nonfiction book that came out was takes a look at Southern West Virginia post-Civil War to modern day from a political, economic, and cultural standpoint. And that was actually the final project for my master's degree that was then converted into a book.
Very good. Do you enjoy being a publisher?
I enjoy being a publisher more than I enjoy being a frustrated author.
Yeah. So
some of the nuts and bolts of it is definitely the work part of it for me. I kind of put that akin to editing. So I love both editing and trying to figure out the marketing and all that element about as much. They're pretty much equal.
Well, that's one of the, I of course publish my own books, and that's the enjoyment I have, is that I get to do all that crazy stuff too. Now I do get other people to help me with the editing part of it and with the interior design of the book, and of course I send it off to be printed elsewhere, and but I put it on the Kindle and ebooks myself, so, and that's enjoyable. So I'm glad to see we're joining. And of course, this is what CLAW is all about, is marketing. So we're trying to help each other to be the best we can be. Now most authors I know are they want some drive in them to become somewhat of a known entity in the literary world. What are your goals as an author?
So obviously I'm not going to complain to end up on the bestsellers list somewhere, so that's never going to be, I can't believe everybody's buying my book. But it really kind of started from this story, actually the Gateway story. The first time I had that, I was probably 18 years old. That story popped into my head, and I just kind of let it lie dormant for almost 18 years. And I just reached a point where I was like, I have to write this thing. And so through that process, I realized I really enjoy writing fiction. A lot of it, I kind of pull a lot of things in from my nonfiction academic background that really kind of ties the two together and makes it really interesting for me.
So you enjoy the entire process of creating your own environments, your own worlds, your own characters, and having them become living beings within you?
Yes.
And then you can
Yes,
share them with the rest of us.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. I know writing has enhanced my own life. This is a second career for me after teaching for 32 years. And what I'm compelled to do is to want to satisfy my readers. Do you feel this need to write to satisfy? Is there a compunction to satisfy readers?
I think to some degree there is, because you don't want to put out a book that no one enjoys reading.
Yeah.
But to a certain element, there's certain things. Actually, some of the characters in the books, I don't even know if I have control over them or not. There's this one character, Emily Martin. I kind of describe her as a train wreck, but she's really good at being a train wreck. And about halfway through the first book in the series, I just realized that I wasn't even writing this character anymore, that she was writing herself. And so to a certain degree, I'm just going to let the story kind of go where it does, but there's some pretty good feedback that I also enjoy getting that can really make me a better writer, I think,
Yeah.
when you get some of that. So.
Yeah, when you speak about characters taking over stories, I'm very familiar with it. My first project took 6 years to write because I was trying to learn how to write a book that was good for the marketplace. But at the same time, these characters kept changing the story and adding new twists and such. So, yes, it lends itself to our drive.
No, there was one point, one of the characters in the series, and I won't give away the name so you can read it and find out, but I'd actually killed them off halfway through the first book, because I wanted to introduce them as kind of just this kind of imposing force to the main character. Mm-hmm. And I had a few people out reading copies of it, one of which happened to be my wife and my daughter.
You let your wife read your materials?
I do.
Oh my.
She's
Good
a
for
pretty
you.
avid reader.
So is mine.
But I was actually outside barbecuing, and she came out and punched me in the shoulder and said, "You can't kill her." And I was like, I took that as one person's opinion, but it is my wife, so I got to, listen to it. Then about an hour later, my daughter comes out and says, "I can't believe you did that." And then I got an email from somebody else that said, "No, you can't kill that character." And so now that character is actually one of the main characters in the series, and I'm really glad that I listened to him. So.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. So, you have a current project going on that's kind of interesting. Why don't you tell us about this?
Sure. I got a few things going on. I'll talk about the quickest one first and then kind of jump into the other. I've kind of moved forward. When I broke from that independent publisher, I would just written under my name, but in the last year or so, I've kind of branched out into some different areas and created Mountaineer West, which is my own company where I do write I do the paperback books, Kindle books, also delved into comic books and film recently. So the first comic book that we have coming out is called The Book of Luca, and it's a Pacific Northwest focused post-apocalyptic comic book. The first one should be out around Christmas, like I said, and we want every issue to be really something that someone from the area can look at and kind of get something in it. So there'll be some little kind of Easter eggs for people from the Pacific Northwest that they'll be like, "Oh, I get that." Like the bad guys will probably have a 49ers flag hanging in their
they would be
place.
bad guys up here.
So just some things like that. I'm working really close with a local artist on that, so I'm the writer-creator for it, and we've got a fantastic artist, Ethan Klonch is his name. Yeah. And so that's moving along pretty well. But the thing that's taking up most of my time right now is we're actually working on a short film that's based off a short story that I'd written and then developed and co-wrote with filmmaker Justin Zimmerman. And so we actually finished some pre-production work, including a test shoot up at Fort Worden for that. Then we're going to be moving into production and filming mostly in the Kitsap area in July of next year.
And when you look at this, you're going to see some of their stills and get an idea of just what this project is all about. I'm excited about it when I first found out about it, and I think it's quite an interesting project. And of course, I think most writers want to have their books in film.
Yes.
And make them really come alive then. So I look forward to following this project of yours.
Yeah, thanks. We're really looking forward to it. I think it's both kind of a good representation of what I can kind of bring to the table as a writer, and now moving into like the producer side of the house, as well as Justin Zimmerman's already a fairly well-known regional director. So it's
and we're going to get him on this show yet. I know he was originally going to be with you, and we were going to do both interviews, and unfortunately he had to leave town.
Yep.
But we'll get him back here.
Yep, he'll be around.
We'll get him back here. Now, I have my own publishing company, Westridge Art. You just mentioned your publishing company, or is it just your...
I kind of call
Tell
it
us
more
about
of a
Mountaineer.
yeah. So I have Mountaineer West Productions. The name comes from I'm originally from West Virginia, so the Mountaineer part is there, and then obviously live on the West Coast, so Mountaineer West. I'm not sure how original it is, but I like the name, so I went with it.
Well, we do have mountains out here.
That's true. A few small ones. Actually, they're smaller back in West Virginia, but. And so it's kind of more of a multimedia thing now with the comic book and the film element to it. The base of the company, though, is the Gateway science fiction series right now. That's kind of every year I look toward putting out a book in that series. Then I have some novellas out as well in that same universe. So that's kind of the foundation for Mountaineer West, but we kind of spread out this year and looking at some different things.
Very good. Now, the panel that you were at Barnes & Noble is where I met you, and we had quite an interesting conversation, and of course Mark and I and Daphne Burkham and A.C. Fuller have done a panel as well. Do you have any other projects that you're currently scheduled, signing events in the next few months?
Yeah, coming up, I'm actually going to be at Jet City Comic Show in Tacoma this coming weekend.
Very good.
And I'll have all the Gateway books there, including Schism, which is the 4th book, which just came out. And so that's also available on Kindle as well, so I'd mostly put those out at the same time. And then going into 2018, I'll be at WinCon in Wenatchee, and then NorwestCon and SeaTac. So those are the current conventions that I have scheduled. And then I'm working with Justin and the local Barnes & Noble to probably do a joint kind of talk, maybe a screening of his film Smart, which has won about 20 different film festival awards right now. And then we'll talk about both the comic book creative process, because he also is a comic book creator, as well as how you convert a short story into a film. So.
Very good, very good. You're a busy guy.
Yeah, try to be.
Yeah. And for those of you who are going to, or who have been to Jet City, I hope you stop by Brian's booth and have enjoyed it. If a book club or another organization wanted to invite you to speak, how do we get a hold of you?
So you can actually contact me directly from the Mountaineer West website, and it's just www.mountaineerwest.com. You can go on there, it's got a contact section, and it's an email directly to me, and hit me up and we'll work something out.
Very good. And of course that just showed up on the top of your head, so
yeah.
We'll have that. I'd like to give you the final word. Is there anything else that you'd like to pass on to our BCAT audience about how you go through this craft, this art of writing?
For me, part of it, because of my engineering training in the Navy, it's a little structured to some point, then I kind of let go and just start the work of writing. But what I would say is for people that are out there who are thinking about writing a book, to write it. Don't have to wait 18 years like I did. So now it would have been a very different book 18 years ago, but that's a long time to wait. So write it and then rewrite it and then rewrite it, and then at some point it's going to be right for you, and then get it out there.
Yeah, it's kind of like that first manuscript that I did. I kept going to writing conferences, and as a new writer, they kept saying, well, that first manuscript, just put it in the drawer or throw it away. You know, it's just your practice. I was a teacher. I said, no, I'm going to work with this. It's going to be my textbook. So, and I didn't wait 18 years. I mean, I waited a lot longer than that. But the story was there, and so it came out. And you have to release the stories. You can't just let them sit around in your head. So, and I do encourage a lot of people who say, well, I'd like to write a book. I say, well, do it.
Yeah.
Just do it. And in today's market, of course, it's a lot easier to be able to put a book out and publish it and get it out there for the world to see. And of course, the marketing part, that's the
Yes.
work.
Yes. And I do, in addition, I do some of my own initial editing. Then I have several people that are also involved in the editing process. I have a professional artist that does the cover, and then professional cover design that does the lettering and all that. So I do try to kind of share that workload a little bit with some people that have expertise in that specific area as well.
And you did
so.
mention that for your comic book, you have an artist there as well. So.
Oh, you wouldn't want to see a comic book that I drew.
Yeah, I have a good friend who has an artist who does his work. He has children's books, and he does the writing of it, telling the stories, but he has an artist who works with him. Well, I thank you, Brian, for sharing all that you do in our literary world and coming out to record our show. Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers is expanding its base of knowledge of the Kitsap authors and even other areas. We enjoy having you become a member of our group.
Oh.
And you, of course, formal or informal, you are. And this interview, of course, has been one of the aspects of what we do with Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers. And I would like to thank all of our viewers for tuning in to Bremerton Kitsap Access Television and viewing this Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers production. And I also wish to thank the BCAT staff on cameras and in the director's chair. And our broadcasts are scheduled for Saturday evenings at 6 on Wave Cable Channel 3 and Comcast Channel 12. And if you keep in touch with our Facebook and web pages, you can probably discover where we are going to meet local authors and artists. And I hope everyone has a pleasant evening and a productive and fascinating week. And until next time, I am Peter Stockwell with Kitsap Literary Artists and Writers in conjunction with Bremerton Kitsap Access Television. Good night.